Rynna Thorne went to the airport to disappear. Instead, she made a mistake that could burn a kingdom to the ground. In the chaos of security, she grabbed the wrong black suitcase. Now, she isn't just holding the Alpha King's laundry, she's holding his war plans. And the most dangerous wolf in the world is kicking down her door to get them back. Chapter 1. Fear tastes like copper. It coated Rynna's tongue, thick and bitter. She didn't look at the departure board. She didn't look at the coffee shop with the stale donuts. She only looked at the exits. 1, 2, 3. Because of that, she knew exactly where to run if the screaming started. Her grip on the suitcase handle was so tight her knuckles turned white. It wasn't just a bag. It was her life. Her entire world packed into a battered black shell. A change of clothes, a knife, a wad of cash she had stolen from a drug dealer 3 towns back. She moved through the airport crowd like a ghost. Shoulders hunched, head down. Don't make eye contact. Never make eye contact. Then, the air shifted. It wasn't a sound. It was a smell. Pine, gunpowder, and something wild. Wolf. Her heart skipped. Not just one wolf. A pack. They were here. A siren screamed. Red lights flashed against the glass walls. The crowd surged. It was a wave of panic, pushing and shoving. Someone's elbow hit her ribs. Hard. Rynna stumbled. Her suitcase, her lifeline, ripped from her hand. It skid across the polished floor, spinning into a pile of other bags knocked over in the chaos. "Move!" someone yelled. She scrambled. On hands and knees, desperate. She needed that bag. She couldn't leave without it. There were 2 black cases, identical, lying side by side like twins. She didn't think. She couldn't. The scent of the wolf pack was getting stronger, closer, like a noose tightening around her neck. Her body moved on instinct. She lunged. Her fingers curled around the cold plastic handle of the nearest case. It felt heavy, heavier than she remembered. But panic numbed her senses. She yanked it up. Run. Just run. She didn't look back. She sprinted toward Gate 4. The shuttle bus was waiting, its engine idling with a low growl. She threw herself through the closing doors just as they hissed shut. Safe. She collapsed into the plastic seat. Her chest heaved. In, out, in, out. She pulled the black case onto her lap, hugging it like a child. But then, a shiver crawled up her spine. She looked down at the bag. The plastic was smooth. Too smooth. Her bag had a scratch on the side, shaped like a crescent moon from the time she dropped it off a fire escape. This bag was perfect. Pristine. Expensive. Her stomach dropped. The floor of the bus seemed to tilt. She traced the handle. There was no scratch. "No," she whispered. The word was a choke. "No, no, no." As the bus lurched forward, leaving the terminal behind, Rynna realized the truth. She didn't have her knife. She didn't have her money. Instead, she was holding a stranger's luggage. And if the weight of it was any clue, she had just stolen something big.
The limousine was a tomb, silent, dark, smelling of expensive leather and old secrets. Torvak stared out the tinted window. He didn't see the airport. He didn't see the rain streaking the glass. He saw the reflection of a dying man. He coughed. It was a wet, hacking sound that tore at his throat. He pressed a white handkerchief to his lips. When he pulled it away, the fabric wasn't white anymore. It was silver, silver rot, the Alpha's cancer. It was eating him from the inside out, turning his blood to mercury, turning his bones to glass. He had a month, maybe 2. That was why he needed the case. The door opened. Rain hissed against the pavement. His courier, a man named Silas, slid into the seat opposite him. Silas looked flustered, wet. He was clutching a black hardshell suitcase. "Apologies, my king," Silas breathed, wiping rain from his forehead. Security was a nightmare. An alarm tripped. A stampede. Torvak didn't speak. He just held out a hand. "Give it to me." Silas placed the case on the seat between them. Torvak's fingers brushed the lock. He needed the blueprints inside. He needed the toxin samples. Not to use them, but to destroy them. The council was planning a coup. They wanted to wipe out the human city. They wanted war. This case was the only thing stopping them. He popped the latch. Click. He lifted the lid. The air left the car. He blinked. Once. Twice. There were no blue vials. There was no encrypted tablet. Instead, there was a pile of dirty laundry, a protein bar wrapper, and a knife with a taped handle that looked like it had been sharpened on a rock. Silence filled the car. A dangerous, heavy silence. "Silas," Torvak said. His voice was low, a rumble of thunder before the storm. "What is this?" Silas looked down. His face went pale. I grabbed the case. From the pile. It looks just like. You grabbed the wrong bag." Torvak didn't yell. He didn't have to. The air in the car dropped 10 degrees. Frost crept across the window. "The tracker," Torvak commanded. Silas fumbled for his phone. His hands were shaking. "Tracking it now. It's moving. Leaving the airport. On a shuttle bus." Torvak closed his eyes. He imagined the person holding his case. A thief? A spy? Or just some idiot traveler? It didn't matter. That case contained the location of every wolf tunnel under the city. It contained a weapon that could kill millions. And it was in the wind. "Driver," Torvak said. He wiped another speck of silver blood from his lip. "Yes, Your Majesty. Don't go to the stronghold." His eyes opened. They weren't human anymore. They were violet, glowing, predatory. "Follow the signal, and call the kill team. Because of that mistake, someone was going to die tonight."
The motel room smelled like stale smoke and regret. Rynna threw the lock on the door, then the chain. Then she wedged a chair under the handle. Paranoia? Maybe. But paranoia kept you alive. She tossed the heavy black case onto the lumpy bed. Rain hammered against the roof. It sounded like bullets. She stared at the bag. It sat there, innocent, just a piece of luggage. But it felt hot, like it was radioactive. "Okay," she muttered. Her voice shook. "Okay, maybe it's money, maybe it's diamonds. If it was diamonds, she could sell them. She could disappear." She reached for the latches. They were high-tech. Biometric? No, just a heavy-duty combination lock. But the impact of the fall at the airport had cracked the casing. She grabbed a lamp from the bedside table. With a grunt, she smashed the base of the lamp against the lock. Once, twice. Crack. The latch popped open. Rynna held her breath. She lifted the lid. She didn't find clothes. She didn't find diamonds. She froze. Her blood turned to ice. Nestled in black foam were 6 glass vials. They glowed with a sick, electric blue light. Next to them was a tablet. Curiosity was a curse. She knew she should run, but her hand moved on its own. She tapped the tablet screen. It flickered to life. A map appeared. It was a map of the city, but it was covered in red dots. Hundreds of them. She read the text at the top. Project Omega, target, water supply, casualty estimate, 98%. Rynna gasped. She stumbled back. Her legs hit the wall and she slid down to the floor. This wasn't just secrets. This was a war plan. "Oh God," she whispered. "Oh God, what have I done?" She wasn't just a thief anymore. She was a witness. She had to get rid of it. Dump it in the river. Burn it. Something. She scrambled to her feet. She reached for the bag to zip it shut. But then, the room shook. It started as a vibration in the floorboards. A low, rhythmic thrum. A predatory growl of machinery. A motorcycle. A big one. The sound cut through the rain outside. It got louder. Closer. It wasn't passing by. It was slowing down. Gravel crunched outside her window. The engine cut. Silence. Then, heavy boots hitting the pavement. Rynna stopped breathing. She backed away from the bed. She grabbed the cheap steak knife she kept in her boot. The footsteps stopped right outside her door. There was no knock, no polite housekeeping. The wood around the lock splintered. Boom. The door flew inward, ripped off its hinges. It slammed against the wall with a crash that shook her teeth. A man stood in the doorway. He was huge, drenched in rain. He wore a long black trench coat that swirled around his ankles like smoke. Lightning flashed behind him, illuminating his face. Hard angles, scarred jaw, and eyes. Eyes that glowed a lethal, burning violet. He didn't look at the bag. He looked at her, and in that moment, Rynna knew. The king had come for his crown.
The door hit the floor with a wet thud. Torvak stepped into the room. He didn't scan for threats. He was the threat. Rain dripped from the hem of his coat, pooling on the cheap linoleum. He expected a council assassin, a hulking alpha with a semi-automatic. Instead, he found a stray. She was small, lean, pressed into the corner like a cornered fox. Her hair was a tangled mess of brown and gray, and she held a steak knife like she actually thought it could hurt him. Her eyes were wide, terrified, but she didn't drop the blade. Interesting. Torvak moved. He closed the distance in a blur of motion. He slapped the knife from her hand. It clattered uselessly across the room and pinned her against the peeling wallpaper. His hand hovered inches from her throat, not touching, just threatening. "You have 5 seconds," he growled. His voice was gravel and gunpowder. "Tell me why a stray like you is holding the keys to my kingdom's destruction." She didn't flinch. She pressed back, her chin lifting. Defiant. "You have 3 seconds," she hissed, her voice trembling but sharp. "To get your hand off me before I find out if kings bleed silver." Torvak paused. He inhaled. He expected the scent of fear, sweat, urine, but there was nothing. She smelled like rain, like empty air, muted. She was a muted wolf, an exile whose wolf side had gone dormant, a ghost. Then, another scent hit him, acrid, burning, like ozone and rot. His eyes snapped to the open suitcase on the bed. One of the blue vials was cracked. A thin wisp of vapor was curling into the air. The toxin. It was leaking. "Don't breathe," he commanded. A small red dot appeared on the girl's forehead. It danced over her left eye, then her nose. Torvak knew that dot. It was a laser sight. The council hadn't just tracked the bag to retrieve it. They had tracked it to erase the witness. "Get down."
The world exploded. Glass shattered inward. Crash! Rynna didn't have time to scream. She expected the bite of a bullet. She expected darkness. Instead, she felt leather and heat. The king, the man who had just threatened to kill her, had thrown himself over her. He was a wall of muscle and wet trench coat, shielding her body with his own. Thwack, thwack, thwack. Bullets tore into the wall where her head had been a second ago. Plaster dust rained down on them. "My bag!" Rynna yelled. It was a stupid thing to yell, but that bag was the only leverage she had. Torvak grabbed her arm. His grip was bruising. He hauled her up, keeping low. "Forget the bag," he roared. "It has the war plan," she screamed back. "And the antidote." He looked at her, really looked at her. His violet eyes were swirling with something that wasn't just rage anymore. It was calculation. "Grab it," he barked. "Then move, now." Rynna scrambled across the glass-covered floor. She slammed the suitcase shut, jamming the latches home. She grabbed the handle. Another volley of gunfire chewed up the mattress. Torvak kicked the back door open. "Can you run?" he asked. Rynna looked at the chaos outside. Shadows were moving in the rain. Armored figures. Hunters. "I can run," she said, clutching the heavy case to her chest. But not fast enough. Torvak looked at her. Then he looked at the matte black motorcycle parked in the alleyway, a beast of chrome and carbon fiber. "Then don't run," he said. He extended a hand. It was scarred, large, and terrifying. Ride. It was a choice. A precipice. Stay here and die like a stray. Or take the hand of a monster and live. Rynna reached out. Her fingers brushed his. Electric shock. Pure. Hot. Ride, she whispered.
The engine roared to life, a primal scream that shook the alley. Torvak felt the girl Rynna climb onto the back. She was light, but she clamped her legs around his waist with surprising strength. She pressed the suitcase between them, using it as a shield for her chest. Hold on, he warned, and don't let go. If you fall, I'm not coming back for you. Just drive, Your Majesty, she shouted over the rain. He twisted the throttle. The bike surged forward. It wasn't a machine, it was a missile. They shot out of the alleyway, tires spinning on the wet asphalt before finding traction. G-force slammed into them. Torvak leaned hard into the turn. The foot peg scraped the ground with a shower of sparks. In the rearview mirror, he saw them. 2 black SUVs. Armored, grill guards bristling with lights. They were council enforcement. His own people, hunting him. They're behind us, Rynna yelled, her voice whipped away by the wind. I know. He pushed the bike harder. 80 miles per hour. 100 miles per hour. The city blurred into streaks of neon and gray. But the SUVs were modified. They were gaining. One of them surged forward, trying to clip his back tire. Instinct took over. Torvak swerved. He felt Rynna shift her weight perfectly with him. She didn't fight the lean. She moved with it, like she was part of the bike. Part of him. She knows how to ride. The realization hit him harder than the rain. She wasn't just a passenger. She was a partner. Tighten your grip, he commanded. He saw a gap in the oncoming traffic. A suicide run. He took it. He shot between a semi-truck and the concrete median. The space was barely wide enough for the handlebars. Rynna didn't scream. She buried her face in his coat, her arms locking around his midsection like iron bands. He felt her heart beating against his back. Fast. Frantic. Alive. Despite the poison in his blood. Despite the silver rot eating his lungs. Torvak felt something he hadn't felt in years. A rush, not of power, but of protection. He wasn't just saving a kingdom anymore. He was saving her.
The wind didn't just blow. It screamed. It tore at Rynna's clothes, stinging her eyes, trying to rip her from the back of the bike. Speed was a physical weight. 130 miles per hour. She buried her face in the king's coat. It smelled of cold cedar and something darker. Something like old blood and ozone. Her arms ached from clutching the suitcase between them, her muscles locked in a spasm of pure terror. Don't let go. Don't let go. In the rearview mirror, lights blinded her. High beams. Close. Too close. The bike shuddered. Crunch. Metal shrieked against metal. The black SUV had surged forward, clipping the rear fender. The impact sent a jolt through Torvak's spine, vibrating into her own chest. Hold tight, Torvak roared. The bike fishtailed on the wet asphalt. Rain slicked the road, turning the highway into a slip and slide of death. Rynna looked back. The SUV was right there. A massive, iron grill beast. The driver was swerving, trying to pin them against the concrete median. If they hit that wall at this speed, there wouldn't be bodies left to bury, just smears. Fear spiked in her chest, cold and sharp. But then, rage took over. She was tired of running. She was tired of being the prey. Her body moved on instinct. She didn't tighten her grip. She loosened it. She shifted her weight, literally climbing up the back of the motorcycle seat. She dug her boots into the passenger pegs, rising until she was pressed against Torvak's broad back, looking over his shoulder. "What are you doing?" he shouted. She didn't answer. She waited. The SUV lunged again. It came up on their right side, grinding against the bike's frame. Now, Rynna lashed out, not with magic, not with claws, with the heavy, steel-toed boot of a girl who learned to fight in back alleys. She kicked. Hard. Her boot connected with the SUV's side mirror. Crack. The mirror shattered. exploding inward. But the force of the kick did more. It sent the jagged metal arm of the mirror smashing through the driver's side window. Glass flew into the cabin. The driver flinched, jerking the wheel to the right. It was enough. The SUV swerved violently, tires screeching. It spun out, slamming into the guardrail with a shower of sparks that lit up the rainy night like fireworks. Rynna slumped back against Torvak, gasping for air. The threat was gone. She pressed her forehead against his wet coat. She was shaking. Not from fear this time, from adrenaline. She felt Torvak's ribcage expand, a deep breath, and then a low rumble. It wasn't a growl. It was almost a laugh. "You're crazy," he shouted over the wind. "I'm alive," she yelled back. But as the adrenaline faded, the cold rushed in. They sped into a tunnel, the yellow lights flashing overhead like a countdown. 1, 2, 3. They were safe. For now.
The adrenaline crash hit him like a physical blow. Torvak pulled the bike off the highway, guiding it down a gravel maintenance ramp under a massive concrete overpass. It was dark here, dry, hidden from the helicopters and the drones. He killed the engine. Silence rushed in, heavy and ringing. Torvak tried to put the kickstand down. His boot slipped. His leg wouldn't obey him. "Torvak." The girl's voice. Concerned or calculating? He couldn't answer. His lungs were on fire. Not the burn of exertion, the burn of silver. He slid off the bike. He didn't step off. He fell. His knees hit the gravel hard. He caught himself on the handlebars, his knuckles turning white, but his grip failed. He collapsed against the concrete pillar, sliding down until he was sitting in the dirt. A cough ripped through him. It was violent, wet. He clamped a hand over his mouth, trying to stifle the sound, trying to hide the weakness. But when he pulled his hand away, the palm was coated in it. Thick, shimmering, silver blood. Damn it. He closed his hand into a fist, hiding the evidence. He looked up, expecting to see the girl running. Or worse, holding that knife again. She wasn't running. She was standing there, the suitcase at her feet. She was staring at him, not with fear, with clinical curiosity. "You're dying," she said. It wasn't a question. Torvak glared. He tried to summon the Alpha command, the voice that made lesser wolves kneel. "I'm fine," he rasped. It sounded pathetic. "Kings don't bleed chrome," she countered. She stepped closer. His instincts screamed, vulnerable, attack before she attacks. But she didn't reach for a weapon. She reached into her pocket. She pulled out a crumpled plastic water bottle. She cracked the seal and crouched down in front of him. "Drink," she ordered. Torvak stared at the water, then at her. Her eyes were hazel, intelligent, guarded. "Why?" he asked. "You could run. You have the bag. You could leave me here to rot." Rynna looked at the silver blood on his hand. Then she looked him in the eye. "Because you came back for me," she said softly. "At the motel. You didn't have to." Torvak realized something profound. His court feared him. His council plotted against him. His enemies wanted his head. But this stray, this exiled nobody, was the only one offering him water. He took the bottle. His hand brushed hers. Her skin was warm, rough, real. He drank. The water was cool, soothing the fire in his throat. "We can't stay here," he said, his voice stronger. "The tracker signal will bring them." "Then get up, Your Majesty," Rynna said. She held out a hand to help him. He looked at it. He took it. He used her strength, surprising, wiry strength, to pull himself up. "To the stronghold," he said. "To the stronghold," she agreed.
The city was a fading memory in the rearview mirror. They were in the mountains now. The air was thinner here, sharper. It smelled of pine resin and snow. Rynna shivered, but it wasn't from the cold. It was the pressure. As they climbed the winding switchbacks, she could feel it. A hum in the air. The territory marker of an Alpha Prime. It pressed against her skull like a headache. Even for a muted wolf like her, the power was undeniable. "We're close," Torvak shouted back. Eventually, the trees broke. Rynna gasped. The iron stronghold rose from the black rock like a fist punching the sky. It wasn't a castle. It was a fortress of brutalist concrete and dark steel, built directly into the mountain face. Searchlights swept the perimeter. It looked impenetrable. It looked like a prison. "That's home?" Rynna asked. "That's the cage," Torvak corrected. He slowed the bike as they approached the massive main gate. It was 3 stories tall, solid iron. Rynna tightened her grip on the suitcase. She felt small, exposed. If she went in there, she might never come out. Project Omega, the tablet in the bag, the detonator. She was bringing the bomb right into the heart of the kingdom. "Torvak," she said, her voice barely audible over the idling engine. "If we go in there, they'll know. The council, they have spies." Torvak turned his head slightly. His profile was illuminated by the harsh security lights. "I know," he said. "That's why I brought you." Rynna blinked. "Me? What can I do?" "You see what they don't," he said. "You saw the bag. You saw the trap. My guards. They see the king. They see the crown. They are blind to the shadows." He looked at her, his violet eyes serious. "I need a shadow, Rynna." Something shifted in her chest. All her life, she had been told she was broken, muted, less than. He was telling her she was essential. The massive gears of the gate began to grind. Clank, clank, clank. The iron doors groaned open, revealing a long, dark tunnel leading into the mountain. Torvak revved the engine. "Ready?" Rynna took a deep breath. She pressed herself against his back, fusing her warmth to his. "No," she whispered. Then, louder. "Drive." They crossed the threshold. The darkness swallowed them whole.
The air inside the mountain was recycled, cold, sterile. It smelled of ozone and obedience. Torvak brought the motorcycle to a halt in the center of the grand hall. The engine ticked as it cooled, the only sound in the vast, stone cavern. Home, but it didn't feel like home. It felt like a tomb. Torvak swung his leg over the bike. His boots hit the polished floor with a heavy thud. He stood tall. It cost him everything. The silver rot was afire in his marrow, screaming at him to collapse. But a king does not stumble. Not in front of his pack. "Secure the perimeter," he barked. His voice echoed off the basalt walls. 20 elite guards snapped to attention. Their armor clattered. "My king." A man stepped out from the shadows of the command deck. Tall, broad, wearing the insignia of the head of security. Silas. Torvak's shoulders relaxed, just a fraction. Silas was his brother in arms, the only man who knew the codes to the inner vault. "You made it," Silas said. He walked down the stone steps, his face a mask of relief. "We heard chatter on the comms. The council sent a kill team. They failed," Torvak said. He reached for the heavy black suitcase strapped to the bike. Rynna was standing next to it. She looked small against the massive architecture, a smudge of dirt on a marble floor. She was hugging herself, her eyes darting around the room, counting the guards. Stray instincts. "Give him the bag, Rynna," Torvak said gently. She hesitated. Her grip on the handle tightened. She looked at Silas, then at Torvak. "Do you trust him?" she whispered. "With my life," Torvak answered. Because of that trust, he didn't see the danger. Rynna slowly released the handle. Silas stepped forward. He took the case. The weight of it passed from her hands to his. "I'll take this to the containment vault immediately," Silas said. He smiled. It was a practiced smile. "We need to analyze that toxin before the council makes their next move." Torvak nodded. "Go. I need a medic." He turned away. He began to unbutton his trench coat, ready to finally let the mask drop, ready to breathe. Silence stretched. Silas didn't walk toward the vault. He walked toward the center of the room. The kill zone. Torvak frowned. He turned back. "Silas?" Silas wasn't looking at him. He was looking at the suitcase. And he wasn't opening the latches. He was pressing a sequence of buttons on the side of the handle.
Something was wrong. Rynna felt it in her teeth. A vibration. She watched the man, Silas. He was too smooth, too perfect. He moved like a predator pretending to be a pet. When he took the bag, he didn't check the weight. He didn't check the lock. He caressed the side of the case, like a lover. Why is he smiling? It wasn't a nice smile. It was jagged, cold. Rynna's ears twitched. She heard it. A sound. High-pitched, faint, just on the edge of hearing. It wasn't coming from the ventilation. It was coming from the bag. Her stomach dropped. She remembered the tablet in the motel room, the blueprints. She had assumed the detonation points were bombs in the city. But what if the suitcase was the bomb? Silas stopped in the middle of the room. He turned to face the king. His thumb hovered over a small biometric scanner on the lock. Not to open it, to arm it. Torvak! Rynna screamed. The name ripped out of her throat. She lunged. Don't let him. It was too late. Silas pressed his thumb down. Beep. The sound wasn't an explosion. It was worse. It was a pulse. A ripple of distortion moved through the air, visible, like a heat wave. It blasted outward from the suitcase, passing through Rynna's body with a sickening tingle. But it didn't hurt her. She stumbled, bracing herself. But then she looked at the guards. The elite guardsmen who looked like they were carved from granite screamed. They grabbed their heads. They fell to the floor in unison, writhing as if their brains were boiling. And Torvak. Rynna turned. The king was standing frozen. His face was a mask of pure agony. His violet eyes rolled back in his head. No, he gasped. He dropped to one knee, then the other. He collapsed. Rynna stood there, alone, the only one standing in a room full of monsters. She realized the truth, the frequency. It targeted the wolf gene. It attacked the alpha physiology. But she was muted. Her wolf was asleep. She was immune. And that made her the most dangerous thing in the room.
Pain, white-hot, blinding, absolute. It felt like someone had poured molten lead into his skull. Torvak hit the floor. His limbs wouldn't work. His connection to his wolf was severed brutally, violently cut. It was like being blinded and deafened all at once. He tried to shift. He tried to summon the fur, the claws, the armor. Nothing. Just the static screaming in his head. Through the blur of tears and agony, he looked up. Silas stood over him. The suitcase was at his feet, humming its poison song. "I'm sorry, old friend," Silas said. His voice was calm, indifferent. "But the council offered me a seat at the table. You only offered me a grave." Torvak tried to speak. He tried to roar. All that came out was a wet gurgle. "Traitor." Silas kicked Torvak in the ribs, hard. Torvak rolled onto his back, gasping. "Open the gates," Silas commanded. The guards on the upper walkway, men wearing heavy, sound-canceling headsets, obeyed. The massive iron doors began to grind open again. Torvak watched in horror. Shadows spilled in from the night. Armed men, council soldiers. It was over. The stronghold had fallen. He had fallen. Then, a shadow detached itself from the wall. It wasn't a soldier. It wasn't a guard. It was the girl, Rynna. She was standing. Why was she standing? The frequency should have flattened her. Torvak watched, his vision swimming, as Rynna picked up a heavy iron bust from a pedestal. She held it like a baseball bat. She wasn't looking at the exit. She was looking at Silas. Torvak realized his mistake. He had thought she was weak because she was muted. But in a world designed to kill alphas, the weak inherit the earth. "Hey!" she shouted. Silas turned, surprised. "You forgot one thing," she said, her voice shaking but loud. She swung the iron bust. "I'm not a dog you can whistle for."
The room was spinning. Not for her. For them. Rynna gripped the heavy iron bust. Her palms were sweating. Silas looked at her. He blinked. He looked like a man who had seen a ghost. "You," he stammered. "Why are you standing?" "I'm built different," Rynna spat. She didn't wait for an invitation. She moved. She wasn't an alpha. She didn't have claws. She didn't have super speed. But she had something else. Rage. Years of being told she was nothing. Years of hiding in the dirt. She knew how to fight dirty. She swung the iron bust. Crack. It connected with the side of Silas's knee. Bone snapped. Silas howled. Not a wolf howl. A human scream of pain. He buckled, dropping to the floor next to the king. "Get up!" Silas yelled to his traitor guards. "Shoot her! Shoot the stray!" 2 guards in black tactical gear stepped forward. They were wearing heavy headphones to block the frequency. They raised their rifles. Rynna didn't freeze. She threw the bust. It sailed through the air, heavy and clumsy. It hit the first guard in the chest, knocking the wind out of him. She dove. She slid across the polished marble floor like a baseball player stealing home. She grabbed the fallen guard's baton. Snap. She extended it. The second guard swung his rifle butt at her head. She ducked. A clumsy, desperate duck. The rifle grazed her ear, stinging like a bee sting. She swung the baton. She aimed for the gap in his armor. The throat. He gagged and went down. Rynna scrambled back, panting. Her chest heaved. She stood between the fallen king and the traitors. She looked small, ridiculous. A girl in a leather jacket, fighting an army. But she didn't step aside. Maybe it was fate. Or maybe she was just stupid. She looked down at Torvak. He was curled on the floor, shaking. Silver blood leaked from his nose. "Don't die on me," she hissed. "I didn't steal your luggage just to watch you quit."
Torvak couldn't breathe. The frequency was a physical weight. It felt like an elephant was standing on his chest. His blood boiled. But his eyes were open. He watched the girl. She was a blur of motion. She wasn't graceful. She fought like a cornered rat. She bit. She scratched. She used the environment. She took a hit to the shoulder. She grunted but stayed on her feet. She stood over him, protecting him. Why? He had threatened to kill her. He had called her a stray. Yet, here she was, a wall of bone and stubbornness between him and death. Shame washed over him, hotter than the pain. He was the king, the Alpha Prime. He was supposed to be the protector. Instead, he was the damsel. Silas, Torvak rasped. The name was a shard of glass in his throat. Silas was dragging himself backward. His leg was bent at a wrong angle. But he was laughing. A wet, jagged sound. "Look at you," Silas sneered. He reached into his jacket. The great King Torvak, hiding behind a girl. Silas pulled his hand out. He wasn't holding a radio. He wasn't holding a knife. He was holding a pistol, a Desert Eagle, huge, chrome. "Wolf magic doesn't work," Silas said, aiming the gun at Rynna's chest. "But lead still works fine." Torvak tried to move. He tried to throw himself in front of her, but his muscles were water. "Run," he tried to shout, but it came out as a whisper. "Rynna, run." She didn't run. She looked at the gun. Then she looked at the suitcase sitting on the floor, still humming its deadly song. She dropped the baton, and she smiled.
The gun barrel looked like a tunnel, dark, infinite. Rynna's heart hammered against her ribs. Thump, thump, thump. She saw Silas's finger tighten on the trigger. She had a split second. Think, Rynna, think. The suitcase, the source of the noise, the jammer. It was reinforced, bulletproof. It had to be. It held the king's secrets. She dove, not away from the bullet, into it. "Goodbye, stray," Silas said. Bang! The sound was deafening. Rynna slammed into the suitcase, dragging it upright in front of her chest. Wham! The bullet hit the case. The impact was like a sledgehammer. It threw Rynna backward. She slid across the floor, her arms jarring violently. Pain exploded in her shoulder. Bruised? Broken? She didn't know. But she was alive. The bullet hadn't gone through. "Clever girl," Silas growled. He leveled the gun again. "But I have more bullets." Rynna looked at the lock on the suitcase. It was glowing red. System active. She tried to smash the lock with her fist. Nothing. It was solid steel. "Turn it off!" she screamed, shaking the box. It hummed louder, mocking her. She looked at the biometric scanner. It needed a print, an alpha print. She looked at Torvak. He was 5 feet away, bleeding, dying. "I can't turn it off," she whispered. The realization hit her like cold water. She wasn't an alpha. She didn't have the key, but he did. She looked at Silas. He was limping closer, aiming carefully for a headshot. She looked at Torvak. She had to drag him, or she had to drag the box to him. Either way, she had to expose herself to the gun. It was a suicide run. "Hey, King!" she yelled, her voice cracking. Torvak looked at her. His violet eyes were dim, fading to gray. "You trust me?" she asked. She didn't wait for an answer. She grabbed the handle of the humming suitcase. "Because I'm about to do something really stupid." The impact of the bullet against the case rattled Rynna's teeth. Her arm went numb, dead numb. She scrambled backward, crab walking across the cold stone. Get up. But her legs felt like rubber. More shadows poured through the open gates. Council soldiers. They swarmed the room like ants on a carcass. They didn't shoot, they just watched, waiting for Silas to finish the job. The hum from the suitcase was louder now. It wasn't just a sound anymore. It was a drill boring into her ears. Even though she was muted, the pressure was making her nose bleed. Silas limped closer. He dragged his broken leg, but the gun didn't waver. "You're annoying," Silas grunted. "Like a fly." He kicked the suitcase out of her hand. It skidded across the floor, spinning out of reach. Rynna gasped. She reached for it, but a boot slammed down on her wrist. "Crunch," she screamed. A raw, animal sound. Silas ground his heel into her arm. He looked down at her with cold, dead eyes. "Stay down, Stray. Know your place." The pain turned the world gray. Rynna's cheek pressed against the marble. She tasted dust and blood. She looked at Torvak. He was so far away. 5 feet felt like 5 miles. He wasn't moving. His chest barely rose. The silver blood was pooling around his head like a halo. She had failed. She wasn't a hero. She was just a girl who grabbed the wrong bag at the airport. And now, she was going to die in a stranger's war. "Any last words?" Silas asked, racking the slide of his gun. Click-clack. Rynna closed her eyes. She didn't pray. She didn't beg. She just listened to the beat of her own terrified heart.
Torvak watched her through a haze of red static. He saw the boot crush her wrist. He heard her scream. It tore him apart. Worse than the silver rot. Worse than the frequency jammer melting his brain. This was his fault. All of it. He had dragged her onto his bike. He had brought her into his cage. He had promised her protection. And now, she was bleeding on his floor because she was too stubborn to let him die alone. He tried to push himself up. His arms shook. They gave out. He collapsed again, his face hitting the stone. He vomited, a splash of bright, metallic silver. He was weak, pathetic, a king without a crown, a wolf without teeth. Silas raised the gun. He aimed it at Rynna's head. "No," Torvak whispered. He had to do something. Anything. He couldn't fight. He couldn't shift. But he could still speak. He focused every ounce of his remaining will. He didn't try to use the alpha voice. He used the man's voice. "Rynna," he choked out. Silas paused. He glanced at the king. Torvak locked eyes with the girl. Her hazel eyes were filled with tears. "Run," he rasped. "Leave me, please." It wasn't a command. It was a plea. He needed her to live, even if it meant he had to die. "Go," he whispered. "You're free." He saw something shift in her face. Sadness vanished. Fear evaporated. Something else took its place. Something hard. Something dangerous. She wiped the blood from her nose with her good hand. She looked at him, and she shook her head.
Run. The word hung in the air. He was giving her permission. He was setting her free. Rynna looked at the open gate. The darkness outside was inviting. She could run. She could disappear. She was good at disappearing. But then she looked at Torvak. He was dying for his people. He was dying for her. She remembered the feeling of his back against her chest on the motorcycle, the way he had shielded her in the motel. He was the first alpha who hadn't treated her like garbage. If she ran now, she would survive. But Rynna Thorne, the woman, would die. She would just be a ghost again. She looked at the suitcase. It was lying between them. The red light on the lock was blinking. Locked, locked, locked. She looked at Silas. He was distracted by the king's whisper. She looked at Torvak's hand, his bloody, limp hand. She didn't need a weapon. She needed a fingerprint. Her body coiled tight. Silas turned back to her. Time's up. He squeezed the trigger. Rynna didn't run away. She launched herself. She didn't jump at Silas. She didn't jump at the gun. She dove flat, sliding across the blood-slicked floor toward the king. Bang! The bullet chipped the stone inches from her ear. Stone fragments sprayed her face. She didn't stop. She landed hard on her chest, right next to Torvak. "What are you?" Silas started. Rynna didn't answer. She grabbed Torvak's wrist. His skin was burning hot. "Wake up!" she hissed. She dragged his heavy, limp arm toward the suitcase. Silas realized what she was doing. His eyes went wide. "Stop her!" he screamed. But it was too late. She slammed Torvak's thumb down onto the biometric scanner. Beep. The red light turned green. Access granted. Click. The sound was small. Tiny, really. But in the cavernous hall, it sounded like a gunshot. The suitcase snapped shut. The world changed. The hum died. Instantly, the pressure that had been squeezing Rynna's brain vanished, leaving a ringing silence in its wake. The red light on the lock flickered and died. Neutralized. Rynna slumped against the cold floor. Her lungs greedily sucked in air. She felt light, dizzy, as if gravity had just released its hold on her. "No," Silas whispered. His voice was thin, brittle. Rynna looked up. The head of security was staring at the black case. His face wasn't smug anymore. It was gray. "Kill them!" Silas shrieked, his voice cracking. "Kill them both!" The guards hesitated. They were still shaking off the effects of the jammer, their hands trembling on their weapons. But they were trained killers. They raised their rifles. Rynna didn't move. She couldn't. Her body was spent. Her wrist was throbbing with a dull, sickening pulse. She had played her card. She had turned off the machine. Now, she was just a girl sitting next to a corpse. She squeezed her eyes shut. She grabbed Torvak's hand, the hand she had used to unlock the box, and held it tight. "I tried," she whispered into the silence. "I really tried, King." She waited for the bullets. The hand in hers twitched. It wasn't a spasm. It was a grip. Torvak's fingers closed around hers. Crushing. Possessive. Hotter than fire. Rynna's eyes snapped open. She looked down. The silver blood on Torvak's face was still there, but beneath it, something was moving. Muscles rippled under his skin. His chest expanded, dragging in a breath that sounded like a vacuum seal breaking. Thump, thump. His heart. It wasn't beating. It was hammering. "Get back," a voice growled. It wasn't human. It sounded like rocks grinding together deep underground. Rynna scrambled back. Torvak didn't stand up. He uncoiled.
The silence was delicious. Torvak drank it in. The static in his head was gone. The wall between him and his wolf crumbled. Power. It rushed back into his veins like a tidal wave. It washed away the pain. It washed away the silver rot's weakness. Just for a moment. Just long enough. His vision cleared. The gray haze vanished, replaced by high-definition clarity. He could see the dust motes dancing in the air. He could smell the fear radiating off Silas like rotting meat, and he could smell her. Rynna, blood, sweat, and loyalty. She had stayed. Everyone else in this room had to die. A growl started low in his chest. It vibrated through his ribs, deeper than the mountain itself. Mine. He felt his bones snap. It wasn't painful. It was ecstasy. His spine elongated. His jaw cracked and pushed forward. His fingernails burst, replaced by black, razor-sharp obsidian claws. The leather of his trench coat strained. "Open fire," Sela screamed. Bang, bang, bang. Bullets flew, but they were too slow. Torvak moved. He didn't move like a man. He moved like a shadow. He launched himself from the floor, a blur of violence. He didn't shift fully, not yet. He was the War King, half man, half nightmare. He caught the first bullet with his shoulder. It didn't punch through. It flattened against the dense, shifting muscle and fell to the floor like a coin. He swiped his hand. Slash. The claws tore through the first guard's tactical vest as if it were wet paper. The man flew across the room, crashing into a stone pillar. Torvak landed on his feet. He roared. It was a sound that shattered the remaining windows high above. It was the sound of a king reclaiming his throne. He looked at Silas. His violet eyes burned with a fire that promised no mercy. "You wanted my attention, Silas?" Torvak snarled, his voice distorted by the shifting vocal cords. "You have it." The room became a slaughterhouse. Torvak didn't use strategy. He used instinct. The guards rushed him. They were fools. They thought numbers mattered against an Alpha Prime. One guard lunged with a knife. Torvak caught his wrist. Snap. He tossed the man aside like a rag doll. Another fired a burst from an assault rifle. Torvak didn't dodge. He grabbed the barrel of the gun, the metal groaning as he bent it in half with one hand. He backhanded the soldier, sending him skidding across the polished marble. Through the red haze of battle, one part of his mind remained clear. Rynna. She was still on the floor, huddled near the suitcase. A guard saw her. He raised his weapon, thinking she was an easy target. No. The world narrowed. Torvak abandoned his fight. He turned. He leaped. He landed in front of Rynna, his back to the enemy, a living shield. He took the bullets meant for her. They stung, biting into his back, but his healing factor was already pushing them out. He turned to the guard who had dared to aim at her. "Bad choice," Torvak growled. He lunged. The fight was over in seconds. The room was silent again, save for the groans of the fallen and the heavy breathing of the king. Torvak stood amidst the wreckage. His coat was shredded. His shirt was gone. His chest heaved, slick with sweat and blood, both his and theirs. He turned his head. Silas was the only one left. The traitor was crawling toward the exit, dragging his broken leg. He looked back, his eyes wide with absolute terror. "Please," Silas whimpered. "Torvak. We were brothers." Torvak stepped over a fallen guard. His claws clicked on the stone. "Brothers don't bite the hand that feeds them," Torvak said. He walked toward Silas, slow, inevitable, like death itself. "And they certainly don't touch what belongs to me." He glanced back at Rynna. She was staring at him, wide-eyed. He wasn't sure if she was looking at a savior or a monster, but it didn't matter. As long as she was breathing, he would be whatever she needed him to be. The throne room smelled of iron and ozone. Torvak stood over Silas. The traitor was backed against the heavy stone of the dais, his face pale, sweat cutting tracks through the dust on his skin. "Torvak," Silas gasped, holding up a shaking hand. "Wait. The council. They have the antidote. For the silver rot. I can get it for you. Just let me live." Torvak paused. The antidote. Life. It was a tempting offer. His lungs were still burning, a constant reminder of the clock ticking down on his life. But then he looked at the floor. He saw the blood, her blood smeared on the marble where Silas had crushed her wrist. Rynna. She had bled for him. She had faced a firing squad for him, and Silas had tried to execute her like a dog. No deal. You don't understand, Silas, Torvak said. His voice was calm, terrifyingly calm. I'm not killing you for the treason. He leaned in close. His violet eyes flared. I'm killing you because you made her scream. Torvak moved. It was a single, efficient motion. Claws flashed. Shh. Silas gasped. His eyes went wide. He slumped forward, sliding down the stone wall until he was still. It was done. The silence that followed was heavy. Torvak closed his eyes. He willed the wolf back. It fought him. It wanted to run, to hunt, to revel in the violence, but he forced it down. Crack, snap. His bones realigned. The fur receded. The claws vanished. He stood there, human again, naked from the waist up, bruised, bleeding. But King, he didn't look at the dead traitor. He turned. Rynna. She was still on the floor, leaning against the suitcase. She looked tiny, exhausted. Her face was pale, smeared with grime. Panic pierced his chest. He fell to his knees beside her. He reached out, his hands hovering, afraid to touch her, afraid he was too rough, too bloody. Rynna, he rasped. Look at me. She blinked, her hazel eyes focused on him. You're naked, she mumbled. Torvak let out a breath that was half laugh, half sob. Are you hurt? He demanded. Just my wrist, she whispered. She looked at the carnage around them. Is it over? Torvak looked at the dead guards, the secured gates, the suitcase that held the key to saving his city. Yes, he said, brushing a strand of hair from her face. His thumb grazed her cheekbone, leaving a smear of blood, but he didn't care. The war is over. But as he looked at her, really looked at her, he knew the truth. His war was over. But hers was just beginning.
The adrenaline crash was a physical thing. It felt like falling off a cliff. Rynna sat on the edge of a gurney. A medic, a woman with shaking hands, was wrapping her wrist in a bandage. The room was full of noise now. Loyal guards had swarmed in from the lower barracks. Orders were being shouted. Bodies were being dragged away. Rynna felt invisible. She watched Torvak. He was on the other side of the room. A medic was stitching a gash on his shoulder. He was surrounded by his people. Lieutenants were asking for orders. Advisors were already spinning the story. He looked like a king. And she? She looked down at her boots. They were muddy, cheap. Her leather jacket was torn. She was just the stray who got in the way. He has his kingdom back, a voice in her head whispered. He doesn't need a shadow anymore. Her chest ached. It hurt more than her wrist. She stood up. The medic protested. Miss, you need to rest. I'm fine, Rynna said. Her voice was flat. She looked around for her things. There, in the corner, ignored by everyone. The black suitcase, the one that had started it all. And, next to it, her suitcase, the battered one with the scratch on the handle, the one Silas must have had his men retrieve from the limo. She walked over. She picked up her bag. It felt light, empty compared to the heavy burden she had been carrying. She looked at Torvak one last time. He was deep in conversation with a general. He didn't see her. Good. It was better this way. No awkward goodbyes, no payment offers, no pity. She was Rynna Thorne. She walked away. That's what she did. She turned toward the side exit. The shadows were deep there, welcoming. She took a step, then another. Leaving so soon? The voice was low. It vibrated in the floorboards. Rynna froze. She didn't turn around. She gripped the handle of her bag until her knuckles hurt. My flight, she lied. I missed it. Maybe I can catch the next one. There are no flights for you, Rynna. She heard footsteps. Heavy, deliberate, closing the distance. I don't belong here, Your Majesty, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. I'm muted. I'm in exile. I'm not. Pack. No, Torvak said. He was right behind her now. She could feel his heat. She could smell the cedar and the blood. You're not Pack. He reached past her. His hand, large, warm, scarred, pressed against the door, holding it shut. You're something else.
She was trembling. Torvak could feel it radiating off her. She was terrified. Not of him, but of staying. Look at me, he commanded. Softly. Rynna turned. She clutched her battered suitcase to her chest like a shield. Her eyes were defiant, but her chin quivered. I saved your life, she said. We're even. Let me go. You saved my kingdom, Torvak corrected, and you saved my soul. He stepped closer. He invaded her space. He needed her to understand. The council is broken, Rynna, but the rot is deep. He touched his own chest, where the silver infection still lingered in his blood. I am dying, slowly, but dying. Her eyes widened. The antidote, Silas said. Silas lied, Torvak said. There is no antidote. Not yet. He looked at the great hall, the light, the noise, the politics. My court is full of people who smile while they hold a knife, he said. They are wolves. They respect strength, but they are blind to the dark. He looked back at her. I don't need another soldier. I have thousands. He reached out and gently took the suitcase from her hands. He set it on the floor. I need someone who can walk where I can't, he said. Someone who sees the traps. Someone who isn't afraid to break the rules. I'm a stray, she whispered. I'm muted. Exactly, Torvak said. You are the one thing they won't see coming. He offered his hand. Palm up. An invitation, not a command. Be my shadow enforcer, Rynna. Help me find the cure. Help me rule this jagged kingdom. The silence stretched between them. Torvak held his breath. This was the terrifying part, not the fighting, the asking. Rynna looked at his hand, then she looked at the door. She took a deep breath. I don't bow, she warned. Torvak smiled. It was a real smile. Rare, dangerous. I would never ask you to. She reached out. She placed her hand in his. Her skin was rough. His was scarred. It was a perfect fit. Okay, she said, but you're buying me a new suitcase. Torvak laughed. He pulled her in, tucking her against his side. The fit was natural. Right. Deal. He looked out over the hall. The guards were watching now. They saw their king standing with the exile. Let them stare. The king had his crown, but more importantly, he had his shadow, and together, they were going to burn the whole corrupt world down and build something new.